welcome or welcome back. My name is Brittany and today's video is super exciting. I wanted to share my 2025 anticipated releases. I have been watching BookTube, looking at my favorite authors, checking in NetGalley and Amazon for upcoming releases, and I have a nice, strange list of things. Anything from romance to fantasy to falling in love with a blob or a plane. I have a nice mix of things, primarily from January to June. So take some notes, let's chat about what's coming out, starting with January. Let me know what you are excited for down below. And if you find a new book that I didn't mention that you think I would like, just based on what I'm sharing today, please let me know. It is sometimes hard to find those more obscure, random, strange books because they're not maybe as popular or widely known. So if there's something that's on your radar that does fit some of the weirder books I'm going to share today, please let me know. I am dying to read more weird stuff in 2025. So we are starting off on January 7th with The Perfect Home by Danielle Kennitz. So this follows Dawn Decker. She's an all-American every woman and the salt to her husband Wyatt's sweet, media-friendly charm on their Tennessee-based home renovation reality TV show, The Perfect Home. While Dawn bristles at the trappings of their D-list celebrity status, Wyatt hungers for greater fame. The couple also faces infertility issues stemming from Wyatt's low sperm count. He secretly orders an experimental fertility drug, and they conceive, but his personality takes a dark turn. He becomes moody, withdrawn, and even cruel. When Dawn discovers his horrifying plot to manufacture a tragedy in order to skyrocket their celebrity status, she takes her infant twins and goes on the run. Wyatt appears on national television to turn the public against her, painting Dawn as an unstable kidnapper suffering from postpartum psychosis. His charm is so compelling that Dawn's closest friends doubt her. She will have to dig deep into the past, both hers and Wyatt's, to find allies, to protect her children, and to beat this beloved all-American celebrity at his own game. Ooh, and it says we have dual perspectives. So I think this sounds really interesting. And I just think the infertility aspect, taking drugs, I'm just curious to see like how psycho he's going to get. And I think that sounds really fun. So that comes out on January 7th. Next up on the 14th, there are two books catching my eye. We have Lightfall by Ed Crocker. This is the first book in a new trilogy called the Everlands Trilogy. This one caught my attention because of the comp titles. One of them is J. Kristoff's Empire of the Vampire, but the other is Richard Swan's The Justice of Kings. And I loved the first two books in that series. I need to finish it because we're going to see Richard Swan again. If you're comparing to Justice of Kings, I'm hoping for like a legal law-based courtroom thriller almost. We kind of had some of that in Justice of Kings. So this book involves vampires, which, you know, I would be fine if vampires made a comeback. This says, for centuries, vampires roamed the land until the Greys came out of nowhere, wiping out half the population. The survivors fled to the last vampire city of First Light, where the rules are simple. If you're poor, you drink weak blood. If you're noble, you get the good stuff, and you can never, ever leave. Palace maid Sam has had enough of these rules, and she's definitely had enough of cleaning the bedpans of lords that enforce them. When the son of the city's ruler is murdered, and she finds the only clue to his death, she seizes a chance for blackmail to find her way into a better class, into better blood. She falls in with the Leeches, a group of rebel maids who reign in the worst of the lords, and soon she's in league with a sorcerer whose deductive skills make up for his lack of magic, a deadly werewolf assassin, and a countess who knows a city's worth of secrets. There's just one problem. What began as a murder investigation has uncovered a vast conspiracy by the ruling elite, and now Sam must find the truth before she becomes another victim. If she can avoid getting murdered, she might just live forever. Yeah! Vampires, murder, investigating. It sounds wonderful. The other book we have on January 14th is none other than Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. I've enjoyed, I've done a Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, Horror Store, and My Best Friend's Exorcism. And I just enjoy his books for a silly, wacky, spooky time. So I'm excited for this like witchy forward book. They're called the Wayward Girls, loose girls who grew up too fast. And they're all sent to Wellwood House in St. Augustine, Florida, where unwed mothers are hidden by their families to have babies in secret, to give them up for adoption, and most important of all, to forget any of it happened. 15-year-old Fern arrives at the home in the sweltering summer of 1970, pregnant, terrified, and alone. Under the watchful eye of the stern Mrs. Wellwood, she meets a dozen of other girls in the same predicament. There's Rose, a hippie who insists she's going to find a way to keep her baby and escape the commune, and Zinnia, a budding musician who plans to marry her baby's father. And Holly, a wisp of a girl barely 14, mute and pregnant by no one knows who. Everything the girls eat, every moment of their waking day, and everything they're allowed to talk about is strictly controlled by the adults who claim they know what's best for them. Then Fern meets a librarian who gives her an occult book about witchcraft, and power is in the hands of the girls for the very first time. But power can destroy as easily as it can create, and it is never freely given. There's always a price to be paid, and usually it's paid in blood. Dun dun dun. So we will see what happens to these girls come January 14th. On the 28th, we have 2 books. The first one is called Out of the Woods. This is by Hannah Bonham Young, and this follows Sarah Linwood and her husband Caleb of 17 years. They basically were high school sweethearts and set out on a wilderness therapy camp to try to save their marriage. This isn't something I would typically pick up. My husband and I are high school sweethearts, and so I'm just curious to see how this book explores that relationship of, marrying and being with someone when you're so young, to 17 years later. What's their life like? What are they dealing with? What are some of their struggles? I'm just curious to see what's there, what's explored. While dating as an adult and getting married in adulthood is, full of challenges in its own. So is marrying your high school sweetheart, because there's a lot of growing up to do and changing and things that you need to work through. So I'm just curious to see how Hannah does this. And the next one, just to, follow that up with something weird. We have Blob, a Love Story by Maggie Sue. I'm excited for this one. I read The Har by David Sodergren, and I don't know if these books are going to be similar in any way, shape, or form, other than the fact in The Har, there's a blob-like entity, kind of a humanoid being that kills people but is blobby, and I don't know, it just felt like a love story, even though it was a horror. So I'm curious to actually read about Blob, a Love Story. This is a debut novel by Maggie, following the daughter of a Taiwanese father and a white mother. Vilu has never quite fit in her Midwestern college town. Aimless after getting dumped by her boyfriend and dropping out of college, Vi works at the front desk of a hotel where she meets guests, refills cucumber waters, and tries to evade her bubbly blonde coworker Rachel. Little does Vi know her life is about to be permanently transformed when she agrees to go out one night with Rachel. In the alley outside of the bar, Vi discovers a strange blob, a small, living creature with black, beady eyes, and in a moment of concern and drunken despair, she takes it home. That is something I think every drunk girl would do. Oh, look at this little blob. He's so cute. We have to take him home. I think that's so funny. But the blob is no ordinary pet. As the entity continues to change, Vi is stuck with a daring idea. She'll mold the creature into her ideal partner. But when Vi's desire to be loved unconditionally threatens to spiral out of control, she's forced to confront her lonely childhood, her aloof ex-boyfriend, and the radical marginalization that has defined her relationships. A journey of self-discovery that teaches her it is impossible to control those you love. And blobs. Blobs. I love it. It's so goofy. And I don't know, it seems like one of those stories that it's going to be very strange, but I'm hoping there's just like a undercurrent of ooh, that was serious and deep. Excellent. On the 30th, we have The Lamb by Lucy Rose. This says it's another folk tale, a horror story, a love story, and enchantment. Margot and Mama have lived in the forest since Margot can remember. When Margot isn't at school, they spend quiet days together in their cottage, waiting for the strangers to knock on their door. Strays, Mama calls them. Mama loves the strays. She feeds them wine, keeps them warm. Then she satisfies her burning appetite by picking apart their bones. Mama sounds scary. But Mama's want is stronger than her hunger sometimes, and when a white-toothed stray named Eden turns up in the heart of a snowstorm, little Margot must confront the shifting dynamics of her family, untangle her own desires, and make a bid for freedom. With this gothic coming-of-age tale, debut novelist Lucy Rose explores how women swallow their anger, desire, and animal instincts and wrings the relationship between mother and daughter until blood drips from it. It sounds so good. So good. Moving on to February, let's start with Richard Swan. He has a new book set in the world of the Empire of the Wolf, which is the trilogy starting with Justice of Kings. So I do want to, just reread the first 2 books, read that last one, which I haven't done yet, and then be ready for this book because I want to know what happens before I dig into a new world. I don't want to be spoiled for anything, but it does sound like this is a new series taking place oh, so many years later. So this says, a new age of exploration and innovation has dawned, and the Empire of the Wolf stands to take its place as the foremost power in that known world. Glory and riches await. But dark days are coming. A mysterious plague has broken out in a pagan kingdom to the north, while in the south, the Empire's proxy war in the lands of the Wolfmen is weeks away from total collapse. Worse is still are the messages brought to the Empress by 2 heretic monks who claim to have lost contact with the spirits of the afterlife. The monks believe this is the start of an ancient prophecy, heralding the end of days, the Great Silence. It falls to Renata Rayner, a low-ranking ambassador to an enigmatic and vicious race of mermen, to seek answers from those who still practice the arcane arts. But with the road south beset by war and the Empire on the brink of supernatural catastrophe, soon there may not be a world left to save. I think this sounds interesting. It looks like it's going to be a little different. I mean, the cover kind of looks piratey almost. Mermen, werewolves. I'm excited to see how he continues this world. I'm hoping it'll be kind of on the grim dark side. I thought the Empire of the Wolf was a little grim dark and I really liked that. So I'm excited. The next book on the 4th is Blackwood's Blue Sky. This is by Ewan Ivy, and I just recently read The Snow Child by her, and so I'm excited to have a new book coming out soon. So this follows Birdie. Birdie is keeping it together. Of course she is. So she's a little hungover sometimes, and she has to bring her daughter Emmeline to her job waiting tables at an Alaskan roadside lodge. But she's getting by as a single mother in a tough town. Still, Birdie can remember happier times from her youth when she was free in the wilds of nature. Arthur Nielsen, a soft-spoken and scarred recluse who appears in town only at the change of seasons, brings Emmeline back to safety when she gets lost in the woods. Most people avoid him, but to Birdie, he represents everything she's longed for. She finds herself falling for Arthur in the land he knows so well. Against the warnings of those who care about them, Birdie and Emmeline move into his isolated cabin in the mountains on the far side of Wolverine River. It's just the 3 of them in the vast black woods, far from roads, telephones, electricity, and outside contact. But Birdie believes she's come prepared. At first it's idyllic, and she can picture a happily ever after. Together they catch salmon, pick berries, climb mountains, so tall it's as if they could touch the bright blue sky. But soon Birdie discovers that Arthur is something much more mysterious and dangerous than she ever could have imagined, and that, like the Alaska wilderness, a fairy tale can be as dark as it is beautiful. I think this kind of actually reminds me of The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna, where we are in an isolated Alaskan town. We have a very domestic abuse situation happening with Lenny, her mom, and Ert, the dad. And I think that's a great and terrible setting for some kind of domestic thriller, domestic setting to be occurring in. Reading that book and just living in Alaska, I can definitely agree with like the isolation, the darkness, that definitely just can make things worse. So I'm excited to see this idea explored in a different way. And I thought Ewan Ivy's writing in The Snow Child was absolutely beautiful. Okay, this next one's a little silly. This is by Kimberly Lemon, coming out on February 18th. I got abducted by aliens and now I'm trapped in a rom-com. I think this sounds so goofy. I read her other book, That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon or something, and it was so ridiculous, but like in the funnest way. And I think the alien thing is gonna be kind of funny. So this is all about Dorothy Valentine, and she is close to getting her PhD in wildlife biology when she's attacked by a lion. On the bright side, she's saved. On the not so bright side, it's because they're abducted by aliens. In her scramble to escape, Dory and the Lion Commander get an escape pod and crash land on an alien planet that has dinosaurs. Dory and her new lion bestie Toto are saved. Oh, Dorothy. Her name's Dorothy, and her new lion bestie Toto. Little Wizard of Ozzy there. Okay, Dory and her new lion bestie Toto are saved in the nick of time by a mysterious and sexy alien soul. On their new adventure, they team up with equally hot, equally dangerous Locke, who may or may not be a word criminal. Whether it be trauma, fate, or intrigue, Dory can't resist the attraction that's developing into their trio. As this ragtag group of misfits explore their new planet, Dory learns more about how and why they've all ended up together, battles more prehistoric creatures than she ever imagined. She imagined 0. And questions if she ever wants to go back home to Earth in this hilarious and steamy alien romance adventure comedy romp. Lions, tigers, and aliens, oh my. I want to do the audiobook sample for this one because the audiobook narrator for That time I got drunk and saved a demon was so funny. It was so funny. So I will probably be checking that out via audiobook. Moving on to March, we have 4 books coming out on the 4th, starting with The Unworthy. This is by Augustina Bazterisia, and this is an author who wrote Tender is the Flesh. So I DNF'd Tender is the Flesh quite a few years ago at page 30, because I'm a little bitch. Because that was a lot. I didn't think it was bad. It's a book about if all animals are wiped out and we cannot eat animal meat anymore. So we have now turned to special meat, which is humans. And some humans, some people are selected as the special meat, and they're literally treated like cows. We get to explore the slaughterhouse with people as the meat. And it's about as graphic as you can imagine. It is not for the faint of heart, and I couldn't do it. At the time, I just didn't want those things in my brain. I know what happens at the end, so if you can make it through, I think you're in for a gigantic twist, like a what the fuck kind of read. But it just was too much for me. But I would like to try something else by this author. This is her new horror novel set in a near-future dystopia following a desperate woman trapped in a violent religious order. It says the author's looking at the scary stuff: climate collapse, ideological zealotry, and humankind's own tenacious demons who seem to come back again and again. I think this sounds fascinating. You have a secret sisterhood. I mean, someone is trapped in a cell. They want to become enlightened, but there's maybe more than is going on that the character realizes. So yeah, hopefully I can buck up for this one. Next, we have The Dream Hotel. This is by Layla Lalami. So Sarah has just landed at LAX, returning home from a conference abroad, when agents from the Risk Assessment Administration pull her aside and inform her that she will soon commit a crime. Using data from her dreams, the RAA's algorithm has determined that she is at imminent risk of harming the person she loves the most, her husband. For his safety, she must be kept under observation for 21 days. The agents transfer Sarah to a retention center where she is held with the other dreamers, all of them trying to prove their innocence from different crimes. With every deviation from the strict and ever-shifting rules of the facility, their stay is extended. Months pass and Sarah seems no closer to release. Then one day, a new resident arrives, disrupting the order of the facility and leading Sarah onto a collision course with the very companies that have deprived her of her freedom. I think this sounds so cool. Like, people can survey your dreams and like arrest you based on your dreams. Like, that's terrifying. Straight to jail. I just think that sounds great. The next one on the 4th is Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaughey. She is the author of Once There Were Wolves, which still has caught my eye. I just, need to keep reading everything. It sounds like a mystery romance, and it says, with sea levels rising, Dominic Salt and his family guard the world's largest seed bank on a tiny Antarctic island. When a mysterious woman washes the shore, agendas and secrets are revealed. I think that's enough to sound intriguing. I hope it's very atmospheric and strange and eerie. Yeah, and we'll just have to see who the heck this woman is. What's going on? This last one in March caught my attention. So this is actually The River Has Roots by Amar El Moter. And this author is one of the authors in This Is How You Lose the Time War. That's dual written. And I really liked the way that was written. I liked the structure. It was very weird and poetic and like, I don't know, it just was very beautiful. I don't know who wrote what parts, but I do want to check out the author duo. And so this book is written by one of them. In the small town of Thistleford on the edge of Fairy dwells the mysterious Hawthorne family. There they tend and harvest the enchanted willows in honor an ancient compact to sing to them in thanks for their magic. None more devotedly than the family's latest daughters, Esther and Jezebel, who cherish each other as much as they cherish the ancient trees. But when Esther rejects a forceful suitor in favor of a lover from the land of fairy, not only the sisters bond, but also their lives will be at risk. I think I can see that like magical, poetic, strange writing, especially if we are like a little bit in the fairy realm. So I'm just very excited for that. I think that sounds very cool. In April, we have The Last Session. This is by Julia Bartz, coming out on the 1st. I read The Writing Retreat, and I did like that. That was about a group of women who get together with a really famous author to basically compete and write a book in a month, to basically go on tour, to have like instant fame and success, and things do not turn out well. It was very mysterious. The author herself was just like odd. alluring but like weird person to follow, and just how the whole story went was really intriguing. So I'm excited to check out another book by this author. When a catatonic woman shows up at a psych unit, social worker Thea swears she knows her from somewhere. She's shocked to discover the patient holds a link to a traumatic time in her past. Upon regaining lucidity, the patient claims she can't remember the horrific recent events that caused her brain to shut down, but Thea is at a loss, especially when the patient is then ripped away from her as suddenly as she appeared. Determined to find her, Thea follows a trail of clues to a remote center in southwest New Mexico, where a charismatic couple holds a controversial monthly retreat to uncover attendees' romantic and sexual issues. Forced to participate in increasingly intimate exercises, Thea finds herself inching closer not only to her missing patient, but also to tantalizing answers about her harrowing past. However, time is running out, and if she stays for the last session, she too might lose her mind. Or worse. You have like a psych patient and a psych unit like just shut down. I think that mental health is really fascinating. And then now you're at like a sex couples retreat, like doing weird stuff. Like, I don't know how this is going to go, but it sounds really fascinating. On the 8th, another interesting one for you, we have Sky Daddy. Sky Daddy by Kate Folk. This is just so silly. Linda is doing her best to lead a life that would appear normal to the casual observer. Weekdays, she earns $20 an hour, moderating comments for a video sharing platform, then rides the bus home to the windowless garage she rents on the outskirts of San Francisco. But on the last Friday of each month, she indulges her true passion, taking Bart to SFO for a round-trip flight to a regional hub. The destination is irrelevant because each trip means a new date with a handsome stranger. A stranger whose intelligent windows, sleek fuselages, and powerful engines make Linda feel the way no human ever could. Linda knows that she can't tell anyone she's sexually obsessed with planes, nor can she reveal her belief that it's her destiny to marry one of her suitors by dying in a plane crash, a catastrophic event that would unite her and her soulmate plane for eternity. But when an opportunity arises to hasten her dream of eternal partnership and the carefully balanced elements of her life begin to spin out of control, she must choose between maintaining the trappings of normalcy and launching herself headlong towards a love she's always dreamed of. Oh, that just sounds so weird and I cannot wait. Amazing. Sign me up. So this next book is by the same author who wrote Convenience Store Woman and Earthlings, which I have not gotten to, but I'm hoping to do that soon. And this is Vanishing World by Sayaka Murata, coming out on April 15th. As a girl, Amin realizes with horror her parents copulated in order to bring her into the world, rather than using artificial insemination, which became the norm in the mid-20th century. Amin strives to get away from what she considers an indoctrination in the strange system by her mother, but her infatuations with both anime characters and real people have a sexual force that's undeniable. As an adult in an appropriately sexless marriage, sex between married couples is now considered as taboo as incest. Amin and her husband Saku decide to go to live in a mysterious new town called Experimental City, or Paradise Eden, where all children are raised communally and every person is considered mother to all children. Men are beginning to become pregnant using artificial wombs that sit outside their bodies like balloons, and children are nameless, called only Kodomo-chan. Is this a new world that will purify Amin of all her strangeness once and for all? That sounds bizarre. It'll be really interesting just to see how a future of fertility and stuff like that changes, and exploring these like alternate realities is really fascinating. So I've heard this author is very strange with her writing, and so I'm just excited to see just what this is about. It sounds fascinating. On the 22nd, we have an Emily Henry novel, which I have already pre-ordered as an audiobook because it is narrated by Julia Whalen, and that is Great Big Beautiful Life. This is following Alice Scott, an internal optimist still dreaming of her big writing break. Hayden Anderson is a Pulitzer Prize winning human thundercloud, and they're both on a balmy little crescent island for the same reason, to write the biography of a woman no one has seen in years, or at least meet the octogenarian who claims to be the Margaret Ives, tragic heiress, former tabloid princess, and the daughter of one of the most storied and scandalous families of the 20th century. When Margaret invites them both for a one-month trial period, after which she'll choose a person who will tell her story. There are 3 things keeping Alice's head in the game. 1, Alice genuinely likes people, which means people usually like Alice, and she has a whole month to win the legendary woman over. 2, she's ready for the job and the chance to impress her unimpressed family. And 3, Hayden Anderson, who should have no reason to be concerned about losing his book, is glowering at her in a shaken to the core way that suggests he sees her as competition. But the problem is that Margaret is only giving them pieces of her story. Pieces they can't swap out to put together because of an ironclad NDA and an inconvenient yearning pulsing between them every time they're in the same room. And it's becoming abundantly clear that their story, just like the tale Margaret's spinning, could be mystery, tragedy, or love ballad, depending on who's telling it. I just enjoy Emily Henry, Julia Whelan. I think it'll be a great, fun springtime read. This next one is a horror novel. This is When the Wolf Comes by Nat Cassidy, also on the 22nd. One night, a struggling actress finds a 5-year-old runaway hiding in the bushes of her apartment. After a violent and bloody encounter with the boy's father, she and the boy find themselves running for their lives. As they attempt to evade the boy's increasingly desperate father, Jess comes to a horrifying understanding of the butchery that follows them. The boy can turn his every fear into reality. And when the wolf finally comes home, no one will be spared. Interesting. I don't really know what that means, but I think that's fine. As far as like a horror novel goes, just sometimes the less you know, the better. I enjoyed Mary a lot, and the Nestlings, that was pretty cool. So I'm just excited to see what Nat Cassidy keeps doing. Next up in May, on the 6th, we have The Names by Florence Knapp. In the wake of a catastrophic storm, Cora sets off with her 9-year-old daughter, Maya, to register her son's birth. Her husband, Gordon, a local doctor respected in the community, but a terrifying and controlling presence at home, intends for her to name the infant after him. But when the registrar asks what she likes to call the child, Cora hesitates. Spanning 35 years, what follows are 3 alternate and alternating versions of Cora and her young son's lives, shaped by the choice of a name. In a richly layered prose, The Name explores the painful ripple effects of domestic abuse and the messy ties of a family and the possibilities of autonomy and healing. I don't know. I think this sounds interesting. On the 13th, I know a lot of people are excited about this. We have The Devils by Joe Abercrombie, which is the start of a new series. It seems like this is not in any way, shape, or form related to First Law, so maybe I'll check this out and then dive into his backlist. Holy work sometimes requires unholy deeds. Brother Diaz has been summoned to the sacred city where he is certain a commendation and grand holy assignment awaits him. But his new flock is made up of unrepentant murderers, practitioners of a ghastly magic, and outright monsters. The mission he is tasked with will require bloody measures from all of them in order to achieve its righteous ends. Elves lurk at the border and hunger for our flesh, while greedy princes care for nothing but their own ambitions and comfort. With a hellish journey before him, it's a good thing Brother Diaz has devils on his side. Yeah. Sounds great. On the 20th, we have The Starving Saints. This is by Caitlin Starling. Amar Castle has been under siege for 6 months. Food is running low and there's no sign of rescue. But just as the survivors consider deliberately thinning their numbers, the castle stores are replenished. The sick are healed, and the divine figures of the Constant Lady and her saints have arrived. Soon the entire castle is in the sway of the saviors, partaking in intoxicating feasts of terrible origin. The war hero Sir Von gives her allegiance to the Constant Lady. Focine, a disorganized and paranoid nun turned sorceress, races to unravel the mystery of the new visitors and exonerate her experiments as their source. And in the bowels of the castle, a serving girl, Trelia, is torn between her thirst for a secret vengeance against Voin and the desperate need to escape the horrors that are unfolding within the castle walls. As the castle descends into bacchanalian madness, forgetting the massed army behind the walls in favor for hedonistic ecstasy, these 3 women are the only ones to still see their situation for what it is. But they are not immune from the temptations of the castle's new masters or each other, and their shifting alliances and entangled past brings violence to the surface. To save the castle and themselves will take a reimagining of who they are and a reorganization of the very world itself. On June 3rd, we have Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I mean, what more could we ask for, right? This is about Joan Goodwin, and she has been obsessed with the stars for as long as she can remember. Thoughtful and reserved, Joan is content with her life as a professor of physics and astronomy at Rice University and as an aunt to a precious niece. That is, until she comes across an advertisement seeking the first women scientists to join NASA's Space Shuttle program. Suddenly, Joan burns to be one of the few people to go to space. This is set in the summer of 1980 when she begins training at their space camp. As the new astronauts become unlikely friends and prepare for their first flights, Joan finds a passion and a love she never imagined. In this new light, Joan begins to question everything she ever knew about her place in the observable universe. Then in December of 1984, everything changes in an instant. Depending on who narrates this one, I might pick this as an audiobook, so we shall see. And on June 10th, we have kind of another big name for a lot of people. V.E. Schwab has a new book, Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. This one's pretty short and brief. I'm hoping actually this one is more along the lines of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I really liked that book. I also read The Villains. I liked the first one, not so much the second one. I thought Shades of Magic was okay, but I kind of liked her more like romantic, lyrical fantasy stuff. Santo Domingo de la Caldaza, 1532, London, 1827, and Boston, 2019. 3 young women, their bodies planted in the same soil, their stories tangling like roots. One grows high, one grows deep, and one grows wild. And all of them grow teeth. Sounds great. I do not know how to say this author's name. This book comes out August 5th. It's called The Hounding by Zenobi Purvis. And okay, first of all, I love dogs and I really love this cover. They look like Italian greyhounds. Love that. And this sounds kind of strange. So even before the rumors about the Mansfield girls began, Little Nettlebed is a village steeped in the uncanny, from strange creatures that wash up on the riverbank to portentous ravens gathering on the roofs of people about to die. But when the villagers start hearing barking and one claims to see the Mansfield sisters transform before his very eyes, the allegation sparks fascination and fear like nothing before. Though the inhabitants of Little Nettlebed have never much liked the Mansfield girls, they've always had plenty to say about them. As the rotating perspectives of 5 villagers quickly make clear, now is no exception. Even if local belief in witchcraft is waning, an aversion to difference is as widespread as ever, and these conflicting narratives all point to the same ultimate conclusion. Something isn't right in Little Nettlebed, and the sisters will be the ones to pay for it. I think that sounds great, and if these girls are actually turning into dogs, that just makes me think of Night Bitch, which was wonderful, so great. Excellent. Some things that we don't really know much about. We do have a new Thursday Murder Club book 5 coming out in September. Catriona Ward has a new book. Don't have the date, there's no cover, but it's called Nowhere Burning. She writes some strange horror. And then The Will of the Many, the second book in that Heirarchy series, is allegedly coming out in 2025. And there were rumors about Red God by Pierce Brown, but still TBD. That is it. Those are all the books I'm super excited about for 2025. Again, let me know what you were excited about down below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!